welcome back to another episode of Combat Society. I'm here with Tyron, and we're going to discuss some of the week's action. UFC 238, great card. Cejudo versus Moraes. Bellator 222 is this weekend, and there's some awesome fights on that, so we'll get into that and some other news across the MMA community. But let's get straight into Cejudo versus Moraes. What a card. We thought it was pretty good, don't you reckon?
Yeah, definitely one of the better cards we've seen this year, and probably one of the better cards we'll see all year. Stacked fights, lot of big knockouts, and some good decisions as well.
Yeah, so let's get straight into the main event, Cejudo versus Moraes. And going into this fight, Moraes actually pulled ahead as favorite going into this one. And we thought Cejudo had a really big chance of getting the win, and he did in pretty remarkable fashion, I think. He was down in that first round, and he came back and really showed what he's made of, and he became double champ.
Absolutely. Definitely in that fight, Henry showing a heart of a champion, heart of an Olympic champion, and obviously now two-weight world champion simultaneously. And as you said, first round, I was getting the kind of feeling that it was going to be one of those fights that would go 5 rounds where maybe Marlon Moraes was chipping away at him, and it sort of had that feeling to it that he was just going to get chipped away at and then maybe finish late in the fight. But going into the second round, getting some really good advice from his corner, just going after Marlon with a strike-heavy game plan, and was able to land the shots and eventually put him away in the fight. So really able to adapt and change the game plan and come away with the win. He's a real competitor.
Yeah, if I'm honest, in the first round, I was actually very nervous for Henry because it actually looked like Marlon was like really dangerous in that first round, and if much of the same was to happen for the rest of the fight, I would see Moraes coming away with a big knockout. But we saw Henry prevail going into the next few rounds, and he got that ground and pound victory, raised the 2 belts. Now he's one of 4, I think, simultaneous. I'm not sure exactly. I think only 4 have held it simultaneously, or 3.
Yeah.
Daniel, Connor, him. That actually might be it simultaneously. It might. Oh, and Daniel Cormier. So 4, that's 4. So yeah, Henry Cejudo, he's calling out people now, and he wants to potentially go up and fight for the featherweight. That's crazy to me. He's a small guy, but I wouldn't count him out for it.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got some big dreams, and if he can, maybe fight a couple more fights at bantamweight, defend his title. If he wants to go back down to flyweight, that's a possibility too. Don't know if he will. Doesn't really happen once you get a second belt. Usually, from what we've seen in the past, they usually stay up at the heavier weight because it's much easier for the weight cut. And there's some real killers at featherweight as well. If he's gonna go fight those guys, we're talking Max Holloway, much bigger, longer, quicker hands, and Frankie Edgar. That's a possibility also. We don't know what will happen.
Yeah, he called out some weird people though after the fight. Some people that you wouldn't think he called, like Dominic Cruz, Cody Garbrandt. I was thinking, you're calling out the wrong people. Those people aren't even fighting. Or Cody Garbrandt got finished, and Dominic Cruz is injured. Why aren't you calling out Aljamain Sterling or somebody of that nature, or Joseph Benavidez that you really like, who are really at the top? I guess he's trying to get, as he said, he's trying to get paid. But yeah, he actually was the highest paid on that card. I'm pretty sure he was the highest paid.
Well, you think he would be, seeing as he is the flyweight champ who just beat TJ and Demetrius. He is a bit of a draw, and he's got that cringy sort of character to him.
I think he's developing
some people don't like it. I actually like it. It's just him being him. He's having a bit of fun. But when it comes to fight time, he's serious, and he gets the job done. He knows how to win. It's the kind of thing we see from... it's very exciting to see that from a guy that's so small. When you see that kind of behavior from a guy like maybe John Jones, a guy who's a real competitor, does anything to win, can face adversity and come away with the win. And we're seeing that from Henry Cejudo also, which is very promising.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Henry. If he goes up, he can do that. I think he has a good chance. Now we'll get into women's flyweight championship was on the line, and we thought Shevchenko would have a dominant victory. That she did. Got one of the best knockouts we've seen in women's MMA, and probably MMA in general. Was just it looked like she murdered her. And Valentina Shevchenko, I don't know, I can't find any worthy opponents for her at this point. She's just pulling away from the rest.
Yeah, what a fight. In my opinion, it was just a matter of time before she got the knockout. We said previously on last week's show that Valentina would get the win pretty easily, and she came in with the perfect game plan to be able to land the head kick. constantly kicking to the body early, and then going up to the head and getting the knockout, a brutal knockout. Jessica was out for probably 5 minutes. They showed her initially getting knocked out, and then they stopped showing it until she actually woke up, because we don't know what will happen there if she was okay. And as you said, Valentina, is there any worthy opponent for her? Maybe going up is the answer to get a fight, but also going back, as we said, that she'd have an easy win. I was watching the Embedded previously last week, and the kind of thing I was seeing from Valentina was heavy bag work, training, sweating it out like an animal, and Jessica I getting her makeup done, hair done, massages, and we see this constantly in the UFC. I don't know if it's whether they're trying to picture it that way, but we do see it time and time again. One person's training and the other person's like taking it easy and relaxing on fight week, which is, I don't think that's the best way to go about it, and it showed in the result.
Yeah, you definitely can't be doing that. You have to be 100% focused, especially if you're going to get a title shot against Shevchenko. If she goes up, she's got Nunes, and she's already lost to Nunes twice, so I don't think that's the thing. But look, she's improving as it goes on, and she's getting knockouts like that. Wow. She might contest it, but I don't see a third fight happening. It was a unanimous and then a split, I believe. So there's some contention there, but look, there's no one near her in this division. We're going to talk about Tatiana Suarez next, who's the next in line, but we'll get into the fight of the night, which was Tony Ferguson, Donald Cerrone, the people's main event, as everyone was calling it. Look, Tony Ferguson had a great performance, another one, 12 in a row, defeated Donald Cerrone with the eye problem, the doctor stoppage. But look, Donald Cerrone wasn't in Tony's league. I think we have to make that very clear. He wasn't in Tony's league, and Tony, is Tony, and he just does what he does. He keeps going, pushing forward, and Donald Cerrone has a problem, with people attacking him, pushing him forward, like Darren Till. That if someone's doing that to him, he's copping a lot of damage, and Tony implemented the perfect game plan, as he always does, and he's eyeing that belt that he's surely going to get it next.
Yeah, as we said last week, Donald doesn't thrive when he's on the back foot. He wants to keep it at a distance, and Tony was right in his face, throwing unorthodox stuff at him, and he wasn't able to counter it. And that's what happens when he wasn't able to play a counter-punching game. He was overwhelmed, and he started to panic. And as you said, Donald sort of shouldn't have been in there with him. Tony clearly was the better fighter, but there was some controversy at the end where Tony landed a punch after the bell that didn't hit him in the eye, but going into the next round, Donald Cerrone blew his nose, which blew his eye up, and they stopped the fight, which is a bit unfortunate because we were originally got a 3-round fight, and we actually only really got 2 rounds. So unfortunate there. Tony Ferguson, he's very hard on himself. He says he wanted to run it. He says he will run it back or wants to run it back. I don't think that's necessary.
Yeah, definitely.
Tony Ferguson clearly won that fight. He's clearly the better fighter. He needs to move on to bigger and better things. Conor McGregor, Khabib, they're the next 2 fights.
He can't do much more.
Either one of them. Fighting Donald, it's there's no point. You beat in prime Donald Cerrone. You're not going to get a better Donald than that. And Tony Ferguson proving once again he's one of the best lightweights in the world.
Yeah, and he needs to fight for the title next. I don't think you can do much more unless you're going to get Conor. Look, you got to get that title fight after Dustin Poirier and Khabib. That's the only logical conclusion there. Now we'll get into the bantamweight fight, which we thought probably should have been on the prelims, but this was a very interesting fight. Peter Yan versus Jimmy Rivera. We got some flack saying we don't know who Peter Yan is for some reason. Of course, we know Peter Yan. He got the victory over Jimmy Rivera. But look, I'm not convinced with Peter Yan yet after the performance. I thought Jimmy Rivera was better in most scenarios, if not nearly every single scenario, except for 2 moments, one in the first round and one in the second round when he was nearly finished. Look, Peter Yan got the victory, did what he needed to do. He got the win. He's going to move up. But look, Jimmy Rivera had a great fight. He had a great fight. Don't take anything away from Jimmy. He also had a great fight. So I'm not convinced with Peter Yan.
As you said, Jimmy came to fight, and he fought his best fight. He just made some critical errors late in the rounds, and that swayed the judges. Look, he won rounds 1 and 2 up until those points, and in the judges' eyes, that was enough to give the fight to Peter Yan. And there's nothing you can really do about that. That's just two critical errors. Came back in the third pretty strong. Maybe won that round as well. But 2-1, some critical errors. He's still one of the best in the world. Peter Yan hasn't, as you said, not quite proven himself like with real convincing wins. He did get a win, not taking anything away from Peter Yan, not taking anything away from him. Got the win, and Jimmy Rivera also looked good. So
look, I am taking things away from him. Okay. I can't deny that I have taken things away from him here. He got a win, but it wasn't convincing. And that's not to Peter Yan. That's just to address the other people who are saying he's this, that, and the other. He needs to, I think he can do better. That's what I'm saying. I think he can do better, and he needs to do better against Aljamain Sterling if he ever gets that fight. If he wants to fight Henry Cejudo, if he wants to fight Pedro Munoz or Marlon Moraes, these guys, he needs to do better because he will lose if he does bring that kind of game plan. But he is always a threat because he did nearly finish the fight twice, as we said. So with more fights in the UFC, he will definitely be a big contender. If not, he already is. Now we'll get into our big man, Tai Tuivasa, the Australian, who fought Blagoy Ivanov. He got a loss, Tai Tuivasa. Blagoy got the win. What did you think of that one?
Blagoy had a good win there. Tai Tuivasa, unfortunate, came up short. Blagoy embraced the grind and he went after Tai Tuivasa. It was a game of inches, man, and Blagoy was just landing the better shots. He was just more often, and he was landing the better shots. Tai Tuivasa was still landing, did get dropped. Unfortunate. What are you going to do? It's a heavyweight fight, and when you're just throwing bombs, really anything can happen. I was actually surprised there was no knockout in this fight, but unfortunate for Tai. Really good for Blagoy. He's really moving up the rankings. Could possibly get a top 10 guy now. For Tai Tuivasa, maybe he needs to go back to the drawing board and try and maybe come back with a better game plan, because that's 2 losses in a row. Yeah. Maybe this big knockout power sort of game is starting to get exposed. It's not really working for him. Not taking anything away from him or not trying to criticize him or Blagoy, but maybe the possible next route for him would be to take more of like a technical approach with more boxing and sort of staying away from the big punches. Because if you're getting dropped in rounds, especially against a guy like Blagoy, who's not the most technical guy, he's not really up there in the rankings either. It's unfortunate for Tai. I hope he can recoup and come back with a better game plan next time.
Yeah, he definitely needs to go back to the drawing board, as you said, because it's not working. We see fighters like this who rely on the big punches, and even in the heavyweight division, look, it's historically, people like to knock people out in the heavyweight division. That's what people rely on. But if you want to be at the elite, you need to have more than just a big punch, because everyone has a big punch in the heavyweight division.
Yeah. So. Well, and also on that, if Ty's trying to, follow the steps of Mark Hunt, which Mark Hunt obviously came into the UFC, but he also was Mark Hunt's a legend, obviously a UFC legend, but before that, a K1 legend, and that's what he was riding off. Now, Tai Tuivasa needs to create his own path, and coming in with a Mark Hunt style into UFC is probably not the best game plan, but we'll see.
Yeah. Now we'll get into the preliminary card. This was the one before the main card. It was Tatiana Suarez versus Nina Ansaroff, and this was basically a fight to see who gets the shot at the title next, because Tatiana's 2nd or 3rd rank and Nina's 4th. Yeah, so Tatiana's 3rd, Nina's 4th. And Tatiana, look, she was going to the Olympics. She's got great wrestling, and Nina's just there with the striking. So it was a little bit of a clash in styles, but Tatiana got the victory. She was kind of exposed though, because Nina did a great job with not allowing her to play her game. Now we'll get into Aljamain Pedro Munoz. We predicted Aljamain. He got a very good win against Pedro, a high caliber fighter. Great for him. He should be next for the title at bantamweight. We don't know the order which Henry will try and defend his titles, but Aljamain looked brilliant in this shot.
Yeah, as we said, he came out with a good game plan. Didn't have to rely on the jiu-jitsu at all. We know he comes from some pretty good jiu-jitsu pedigree, but
wrestling as well.
His striking's becoming his bread and butter. Really was able to keep Pedro at a distance and land the better shots. Pedro was coming in with a lot of looping punches and lunging in on his shots, and he was getting tagged sometimes, but Aljamain was sort of keeping him away with the jab and landing the better shots. and overall a really good striking performance and a good win.
Yeah, definitely. Look, Aljamain needs to get that shot next. Peter Yan's also been talking about getting the shot next. So, look, with how the UFC is going, Aljamain might, he might not get that shot for a while if Henry tries to.
Yeah, well, that's the kind of thing you can get. A guy like Henry, when you're coming off a big win like this, the next logical step is to go for more, to get more belts, and you see that quite often, especially with like somebody like Conor McGregor, just wants the next biggest thing, but sometimes that doesn't materialize, and they have to resort to the next contender. So we could see him very soon in the octagon with Henry, which would be a great fight.
Well, 2 belts is the norm now. 3 is could be the norm. A couple years time.
You never know.
We'll see what happens. So the last 2 fights we'll just quickly run over. Carolina got another disappointing loss. She's been moving down, and Calvin Kattar got a great win against Ricardo Lamas. That brings us straight into the biggest fights of the biggest winners and the biggest losers of the card. Let me just find them. Biggest winners of the card. So definitely Henry Cejudo got a great win. Put 2 belts, on his shoulder. That's one of the biggest things going around. He's one of the greatest sports athletes ever. He's moving up. His stock, everything's moving up. Aljamain Sterling, another great win. He should be fighting for the belt soon. Impressive. He looked better than he's ever looked. I've never seen Aljamain look that good in a fight. Everything was on point. As well as Calvin Kattar got another impressive victory over Ricardo Lamas, utilized his boxing, and look, he got an awesome win, and that's going to skyrocket him into the top 10 for the first time, I believe. And he's a threat in the featherweight division. With that boxing, you can do anything. He's got very good hands, and it's boxing for MMA. It's very sharp.
Absolutely, he's got some very clean boxing, and he showed that on Sunday for us, Saturday night for Americans. And I'd love to see him against the big hitters in the featherweight division. Possibly, maybe get a fight against Brian Ortega. I'd love to see that. We haven't seen Brian Ortega back in the octagon for a while.
He's fighting Zabit.
That's right, he is. Maybe after that, but there's some other guys in there that he can move up against, so we'll see.
Yeah, so the biggest losers, which is unfortunate, Jimmy Rivera is one of the biggest losers of this card, just because he's on a few losses, and this was that fight where you really needed to win, and he did look good, and it's really unfortunate that he's one of the biggest losers. And Karolina Kowalkiewicz, massive loss for her career. She's on another losing streak, I believe. Yeah, 3-fight losing streak. So, and not even against great caliber opponents. She was 10-0 when she fought Joanna for the title, and now she's lost 3 in a row to Jessica, Michelle, and Grasso, and she's just losing that killer instinct, I think.
Yeah,
so
I have to agree with that.
Those were the biggest losers, the biggest winners for that card. Now we'll get into Bellator, big MSG fight card, Bellator 222, and that is the Rory McDonald fight versus Neiman Gracie. Welterweight title is on the line as usual after his draw against John Fitch, and that's the welterweight Grand Prix. What do you think about that clash? That's an interesting one after what's happened with Rory.
We know he's coming off that loss. We know he's maybe not in it. Draw, sorry. We know he's maybe not in it completely. And Neiman Gracie looks pretty hungry. The question is, can Rory McDonald keep it off the mat? And if he can probably get a win. But it's going to take some determination to avoid those takedowns, avoid the grappling exchanges. Rory just needs to stay on his feet, land the strikes. But we don't know where Rory's at mentally in terms of, does he want to fight, and is he willing to die in there to win? Yeah. And if he's not, then it's possible he could get a loss here. Yeah,
and Neiman Gracie, that would be huge for him to get into the final against Lima. He would be fighting if he got through. The winner will be fighting Lima, and that's been a great Grand Prix. It's been a great series of fights. Look, if I'm going to pick someone, it's going to be Rory McDonald here, even with the problems. I think Rory definitely has a big chance here if it stays standing.
I like to
he's good with his anti-grappling. He's good.
When I predict fights, I like to also take into account momentum and the mind state of the fighter as well. And I think just Neiman's more hungry, and we've had some doubts on Rory, so I'm going to go with Neiman on this one.
Look, that's definitely fair, and I definitely considered thinking about, his way to win, and he can definitely win. But yeah, I think Rory's going to come in. I don't think he would do another fight where he's not 100%. So I think he's going to be 100%, and that's the main card for the night. We've also got a huge light heavyweight clash. Lyoto Machida's been, he's been tearing it up at Bellator, and he's fighting, the American gangster Chael P. Sonnen is back, and that's awesome. That's a great fight.
It is. Chael Sonnen coming back down to light heavyweight, and Lyoto Machida, a staple of the light heavyweight division, also. It's going to be a clash. Chael Sonnen wants to take the fight down. Lyoto wants to keep it standing, land some karate stuff, and it's going to be a good fight. I think if the fight can hit the mat, if Chael can get the takedown, I think he'll be able to control him. He'll be able to land the ground and pound. I think he can win. I think he's a bit bigger as well, so naturally just a bit bigger, and that could be a key to victory there. Yeah.
Nah, I'm gonna go Machida on this one. Machida's just looking sharp. He's looking real sharp. Looking like he's really in it. After seeing Chael's last performance, I don't think he can win. So, yeah, I'm going to go Machida on that one. You got a pick?
Fair enough. I said Chael, yeah. Yep.
Okay. Now we've got the Bantamweight title, which is also on the line. Darian Caldwell versus Kyoji Horiguchi. These two have fought already, and Kyoji Horiguchi won at Ryzen. Now they're fighting again. Darian Caldwell's going to defend the title. Close one. These are top bantamweights in the world. We know Kyoji Horiguchi has been in the UFC. So, interesting one as well. You gonna make a prediction here?
Yeah, it's pretty close. I'll go with Kyoji simply because he's got the win already, and that's a massive factor going into any fight. But yeah, we'll see. It's a hard one to pick, but if I had to pick, I'd pick Kyoji for sure. Yeah.
We also have Dylan Dennis. Wow, Dylan Dennis is also back in action. Catch weight, 175 pounds versus Max Humphrey. This is on the main card, which is unusual. He is a big name, but he's only had one fight in the UFC, in the Bellator, and he won that by toe hold, I believe it was. What do you think about Dylan Dennis' second fight? How do you think he's going to go against another? Max
Humphrey, never heard of him, but we know Dylan Dennis is one of the best grapplers in the world. We don't know why it's at a catch weight of 175 pounds.
I think his last fight was at catch weight too.
We don't actually know why that's happened, but I have to favour Dennis here simply because he's one of the best grapplers in the world, and if it hits the mat, it's going to be over within 1 minute. So for that reason, I have to go with Dennis. Yeah, and he trains SBG Ireland, trains with all those killers. Conor McGregor, obviously. I think he's living up in Ireland now, so we're going to see his second fight, and I hope he does well. But if he doesn't, back to the drawing board, yeah.
Yeah, Dylan Dennis, 100% here. I think I'm going to go. I think he's going to be... Again, they're obviously giving him opponents that he can beat. So, yeah, Dylan Dennis will get this win, I believe, and it will be by submission because he's trying to represent jiu-jitsu. We also have, in the preliminary card, Aaron Pico's back. There's a lot of hype around Aaron Pico. He definitely has a good skill set. So, I think Adam Borix. Aaron Pico lost his last fight, and it was a devastating knockout. He was winning the fight. I think he had... I can't remember exactly. I think he had the guy hurt, and then he got hit with a massive shot. And yeah, he just went straight out. Aaron Pico is looking to get another win. He's training at Jackson's. Jackson Wink could be a new start for him.
That they might be putting him in the direction of going back to the roots, to the wrestling, trying to stay away from the striking because obviously, as you just said, got knocked out pretty brutally in his last fight. He's got some real killers there, talking John Jones. These guys know how to make strategies and they know how to win. And they're not going to put him again. They're not going to put him in there with a game plan of put him in with a strategy that he's not like fluent with, and that would be the striking. Even though he's a really good striker, they might tend to go towards the wrestling this time. But we'll have to see.
I think that's a good option. Look, wrestling's proven to work. It's one of the most effective things. If you've got a good wrestling base, you got to use it. Work your game around that, and I do see Aaron Pico picking up a win after his previous loss. We also have Hobson Gracie fighting at the bottom of the card here. We've got another Gracie fighting, which is always cool to see. We've got two Gracies on the card. You don't usually see two Gracies on a card, which is interesting. So yeah, that's at MSG. So this is they're obviously trying to stack this card. There's some good fighters on this, and we expect the best at MSG. We don't expect nothing. Look, it could be better.
I like
but
it.
It is Bellator.
I do like it. Yeah, that's right. They haven't got the name. They haven't got the names that UFC has, but for a Bellator card, it's pretty good. I'll watch it for sure. There's no UFC on this weekend. I'd watch it anyway, but this is going to draw more attention to the Bellator since there is no UFC. The MMA fans want to fight, and the Bellator's on at MSG. So
yeah, so they don't. Yeah, the UFC is not on this week, but next week we won't really discuss it much. We'll discuss it next week. But we have the week after Moicano, Hanato Moicano versus the Korean Zombie, Chan Sung Jung, which is always a great matchup, featherweight bout. Look, Chan Sung Jung came off a crazy knockout, crazy defeat KO, and he's fighting a good featherweight who came off a loss to Jose Aldo. So that's always an interesting one. And then in the future, we have a week after that, Ngannou versus Dos Santos. So some good fights coming up.
Yep.
But we're going to get into some comments and we're going to react to them right now. Let's get into it. Okay, the first one we've got is a very unorthodox one. Someone said, this actually, I picked this one just because I think it's quite interesting. And it just made me think. Michael Johnson has fought the big top 3 lightweights, and he's beat Ferguson, he's beat Poirier, and he landed basically the only punch that Khabib's ever been not hit by, but like nearly knocked down by. And he's losing to to people who are ranked like really low in the top 15.
Yeah, it is unfortunate, but that's Michael Johnson. He's a journeyman.
Yeah.
And when you're a journeyman, you get to fight the top guys, and sometimes you get a win. But he's getting old now, so that's what happens with journeymen. Really, as they get older, they're going to lose more fights into less skilled opponents. So that's what we're seeing with Michael Johnson.
Yeah, it's just crazy. He beat like literally the two of the best. Yep. Lightweights that are in the business now.
You have to look at it that they were obviously less skilled back then, and they've improved greatly.
100%.
And Michael Johnson's gotten a bit old.
It's just interesting to see like who these guys verse and get some good wins in their career.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. Who's got a better shot at beating Jones, Weidman or Rockhold? We just found out that Weidman is now officially moving up to light heavyweight, and Rockhold has a fight against Jan Blachowicz. So who do you think has the best chance of beating Jones?
Ooh. I would say probably Luke Rockhold. I would say, because I think maybe Luke Rockhold's striking is just a bit crisper than Weidman's. Weidman sort of wants to take you down, and that's sort of hard. That's going to be hard for Weidman to do against Jones. It's going to be really hard to take him down. And I think the person with out of those two fighters, the person with the better striking has is Luke Rockhold, and that's the best way to beat John would be with the striking, because I think even though John has no weaknesses, if you were to grade his striking versus his grappling, I'd say his striking is less than his grappling. I think his grappling is far superior to anyone else's in the whole UFC, really.
Yeah, I can't fault you there. I think Rockhold has a better chance. Maybe just all-roundedness with the striking and the grappling. They're both good grapplers. But I think Rockhold has a better chance. If it just to submit, maybe. I think that's the only thing. Look, both of these two are only a couple fights away, or maybe one fight away from getting a shot with Jones, really, in the light heavyweight scheme of things.
Well, that's
right
the thing.
now.
These guys are well known from the middleweight division. They're staples of the middleweight division. Both former champions, and all it would take is to go up to light heavyweight and get a win. And there's no other guys in light heavyweight, so you're automatically just getting thrown into a title shot. These other guys are...
And they're former champs.
And as I said, former champs. And that's a great fight. Jones wants to build his legacy, and getting wins over former champions like Rockhold or Weidman is something I think John would be interested in.
100% he would. He would relish that opportunity. So this is the next one. What UFC fighter has the best chance at being a 3-division champion? Perhaps in 2 senses. 1, realistically, with all the current rankings and politics involved. 2, theoretically, just based on their size and skill. So what do you think there?
Theoretically, probably George St. Pierre or something. I would say if he wanted to come back, he could fight maybe Khabib at lightweight, or maybe a 165-pound belt. Realistically, I would actually have to say probably Conor McGregor, I would say. Realistically, somebody who would come back to do that fight. Why I say realistically is because literally if Conor said, I want to fight Usman for the title, that would actually happen. That would be a fight that actually would happen straight away.
And he could beat.
And he could beat Usman with the striking.
Possible.
If he can avoid getting taken down. I don't think Usman's striking is anywhere near what Khabib's is. And I think even if Khabib faced Usman, I think Khabib would win.
You mean the wrestling?
Sorry? Yeah.
The wrestling's not as good.
The wrestling, yeah, that's right. And if Conor if Conor fights, as I said, if Conor fights Usman, that he could become not a simultaneous champ, but a 3-division champ, all the same.
Yeah, look, I'm just going to say theoretically. Look, I don't think realistically the person that I'm going to say can actually get it just because he doesn't even have one yet. But I think theoretically, it would be Robert Whittaker. I think he can win. Obviously, he's got middleweight. I think he can win light heavyweight. And I think he can win welterweight potentially. I can't see him losing to Kamaru at all. I think you'd agree.
Probably not. But that's the thing, if he could make the weight.
Yeah. So, and I think he has some tools to beat John Jones with that all-roundedness. So that's what I'm going to say. But realistically, who am I going to say? It's going to be Henry Cejudo realistically because, he's got 2 now. And look, I think he can beat Max Holloway. I'm going to say that now.
That's fair. That's fair.
So that's quite interesting. Now we're going to react to this. I found this on the internet, and this is the fight order for Bellator 222 main card, and the utter disrespect to a title fight. We've got Bantamweight world title bout, Darian Colwell versus Kyoji Horiguchi as the first fight, the opening fight of the main card, and we have Dylan Dennis as one fight versus guys 3 and 2 as the fight before the co-main. So they've really disrespected this title fight. And I just thought it was funny, just like putting Dylan Dennis there, and like they must be paying him something. I don't know. He must be he's a big name. He must be getting paid something if they're putting him that high up.
It is definitely a disrespect, but you can sort of see why they did it. Kyoji Horiguchi, he's not as big of a draw as Dylan Dennis. That's that's right. Even though Dylan Dennis has one fight, he's a massive draw, and people pay attention to him. They pay attention to his social media. They know he's best friends with Conor. They know he trains at SPG Island, and he can sell fights, and that's the reason for it, I believe. Even though he's a massive disrespect.
Yeah, and then they've got 2 other fights that are just like, they're fighters in the belt. People know them in Bellator, but they're just putting it there is just. It's crazy to me. You would never see that in UFC. You would never put a championship fight, even if it was,
Well, you can just see this past weekend, Valentina versus Jessica Ai, and Donald Cerrone versus Tony Ferguson. Yeah. The correct order to respect the champions would be the way they did it at UFC.
But in Bellator, they always do things a little bit different.
Yeah,
they always do it a little bit different, and they will put they've done this before. They will always put like fights that are just bigger ahead of like title fights or. Just any fights really.
It's a bit of a disrespect in my opinion, but
they'll change things around differently. Like UFC has like this kind of order that they do things. Yeah. Bellator just does it whichever way.
Yeah.
It'd be better for their ratings, I guess, if you put a title fight there. Like they've done that. Look, UFC does change it sometimes where they put a fight that should be a little bit higher in the main card, but they put it first. Like they'll put Jimmy Crute, the first one, even though he's
you can see that's. They usually do that for preliminary cards because they want a really good fight first to draw the viewers in, and then they buy the pay-per-view, which is like a strategy that they use, like a fight they know is going to be really interesting. I just say like a Jimmy Crute fight, big knockout potential, something that will really draw them in, get them to buy the pay-per-view.
Yeah, look, we've got Bellator this weekend. I'm pretty excited actually about Bellator recently. As we said on a couple shows before, Bellator are putting on great fights, and they're actually competing with UFC to some degree these days. And look, MSG, if you can get to MSG, you got to be doing something right. You looking forward to it?
I am. It's gonna be a great card, as you said. Really good card. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll be covering all that action following next week, and we'll also be giving our predictions of Chan Sung Jung versus Renato Moicano the following week. Thank you everyone for listening to this week's episode of Combat Society. Make sure to like and subscribe. Check out all of our socials down in the description. We post there regularly. We've got really good content. Go check it out. We'll see you guys next week.